Well, hello. I feel compelled to share again, so I will share. And since I'm sharing, if anyone stumbles upon this video, please like it and maybe share it if you think there's something valuable in it with somebody or on your social media or whatever. Why? Because I'm sharing. So if somebody else saw what I produce here, it would be kind of the point of the whole thing. But as a curator, rather than a wannabe Joe Rogan or something, or online guru, I'm just doing this because I enjoy it and I feel compelled to share certain things. Obviously, I'm not the most articulate or expert person on the tubes, but I'm sincere and I think what I'm looking at is kind of interesting. So I'm wondering if you do too. So let me know. Um, yeah, a comment doesn't hurt really, you know. I don't want to, you know, beg people for attention. That's not my point. But, just in case. I guess we have to kind of conform to the YouTube creator's handbook and do these things. Otherwise, we'll never get any audience. Also, I don't think the YouTube algorithms like me that much. It's so weird. I guess if I really cared, I would delve into it more and see if it really does boil down to promotion and thumbnails and catchy clickbait titles and whatever. But again, there's so much information out there, um, and lots of good information, which is, why I'm doing this. So I read a piece in Substack the other day, which was a friend posting a friend's conversation with DeepSeek regarding collapse. I've talked about LLMs before and AI. I don't think there's much of a future for AI because I don't think modern metastatic techno-industrial civilization is going to be around that long. But it's around right now. So if you buy low, sell high, NVIDIA stock or whatever, you'll be laughing for a while. Anyway, as you probably know, I'm a big fan of examining collapse and overshoot and climate change and so on. It's been on my radar for decades. So I read the Club of Rome, Limits to Growth, and what was it, Donella Meadows and Jorgen Randers, I think, and Dennis Meadows. Anyway, Donella is a hero of mine. Back in the 80s, and I recently read the new edition. It's really interesting, and I think I was always, partial to ecology and nature and animals and plants and stuff. Although I didn't go into that field, I wound up working in mega cities my whole life. Kind of bizarre. But one does what one does. And so I follow some incredibly interesting writers, and I've read a lot of books on the subject and so on. Basically, a lot of these commentators and writers are scientists, biologists, soil biologists, oceanographers, uh, people in various domains of science that are looking at living systems and systems in general. Sorry, I have a bad tooth. I'm not speaking quite well. Um, and these things are difficult to parse and understand if you're not an expert, if you don't do the math and so on. But it's really interesting to me anyway. And I don't get depressed or bummed out about it. I don't know why, but I just don't. I find it interesting, and I find reality interesting, and I find my mortality interesting. And, it's okay. Even if I don't think I'm personally the most interesting person in the world, and I don't. But uh, I find living is an incredible gift, and for me, I've been lucky, so it's been wonderful. So I posted this thing on Facebook, and one of my friends around here commented on it, saying, of course the LLM would say something like that because it was programmed by, you know, the kind of people who are causing the problem in the first place or created the predicament. I'm not exactly sure in what spirit he meant that comment, but I think he just meant to say what I think anyway, which is, these machines learn from our data, right? And they wouldn't exist without metastatic, modern, techno-industrial, fossil-fueled, high-tech, civilization. I mean, we wouldn't have these data centers running these LLMs, AIs, whatever you want to call them. So these tools are here and they're interesting for now. I don't think they're going to be the one trigger that causes collapse of civilization. It's just going to be another thing because it's very complex. All the things going on in civilization, in culture, among people, uh, on top of messing with the chemistry of the atmosphere of the earth and pollutants and forever chemicals, PFAS, plastics, all that kind of thing. Uh, there's just limits to it. At some point, you cause more trouble than you can fix. So we like to break things and then fix things. It's big business. There's money to be made in solutions. So we do whatever we want to do to profit, to gain status and power and control. And then when things don't work out, when they break, we just find another solution. And we believe there's no limits to that. We'll never run out of energy. We'll never run out of materials. There'll always be another place to go, to mine, to conquer. Our species is like that. We've been migrating around the earth since we emerged. And like our cousins, Neanderthal and Denisovans and so on, we've been wandering around doing what we do. And we have a shelf life. And even though all the stuff we've done is pretty amazing, if you ask me, it's just not meant to last. And the more you delve into these domains of science that I mentioned and read about how things work from any perspective, I keep mentioning the Austrian School of Economics a lot because I was fascinated by Hayek and von Mises and all of the other economists that kind of took what their thinking and ran with it up into recent times. And I find it very interesting how articulate and how their rationalizations and arguments for their beliefs are so powerful, and how they're actually very utilitarian in a certain way, in a certain context. And we certainly believe it wholeheartedly, and we're not going to do anything to get out of it. Most people just don't have a deep enough understanding of our predicament to know even how to think about it, much less what to do. Anyway, so I just, I came across something the other day. We need courage, not hope. I thought that was very interesting. And then another friend of mine sent me an email. Some of my friends in the United States are very, very concerned about Trump and Musk and the whole thing. And they're spiritual people, mystical Christians, and they believe that, Trump is satanic and, you got to fight back and you got to do it through having a meetup in some beautiful place in the Four Corners of Colorado or somewhere at a mystical church with all your beautiful jet set mystical friends. I'm also reading Naomi Klein's book, Doppelganger, which is very interesting. She has a couple of chapters or a chapter in there where she's talking about the pandemic and how certain kinds of people who believe that their bodies are, perfect because they've made the right choices. They're individuals. They go to CrossFit, they eat the right food, and so they're not going to get COVID. And they're pure, right? And if you're not and you get it, it's your fault, kind of thing. Anyway, she goes into that really beautifully. But anyway, so I'm kind of envisioning my friends who are jet set spiritualists or cool people. They have the right motivations and instincts and they care, but there's a certain amount of vanity in it, I think, a certain amount of evangelicalism. We have to come together, our little clique, and be beautiful and pray over it and fight back against the satanic forces of the Trump MAGA crowd. And to me, that's just another way of scapegoating. You're pointing the finger at a clique of people, a lot of people in the States actually, and you're saying, you're evil. And what are they doing? They're saying, I know you are, but what am I? They're pointing the finger right back at you. You liberal weirdos, it's all your fault. If it wasn't for Biden, everything would have been fine and Trump wouldn't have to fix everything. Anyway, it's all sick. To my way of thinking about things and seeing things, it's all pathological. And the preconditions for our predicament have existed for thousands of years. We've just been on a kind of a trajectory. It's kind of teleological. And then we hit modern techno-industrial period in the 19th century, and everything just took off. The great acceleration, right? And now we have philosophers and technologists who believe in accelerationism, like the only way out is through, and the only way through is TESCREAL. It's transhumanism, it's singularitarianism, it's all that kind of thing. We have to crash the system to repair it. What we need is more capitalism. We need more production, more technology, and we need it faster to save ourselves or to get where we're supposed to be going, which is a multiplanetary species of Borg-like machines that are flying around the universe. I think that's all fantasy. It's magical thinking the way some people think that religious faith is magical thinking. It's nice storytelling, and there is evidence, obviously, for how amazing technology is, but we still have to live within our limits. And unfortunately, there are limits to growth, and that's a fact. And we don't want to see that because we're really impressed with ourselves. We love ourselves, and we're very hubristic and kind of arrogant. And so sometimes when we get together with our pure friends who know better and are closer to God and more self-righteous, we feel like we're holy warriors for the truth against the bad guys. But the system within itself has a self-destruction mechanism that's happening. Collapse has been happening for a while. And someday we're going to notice that there's peak oil. And someday we're going to notice that fusion isn't as easy as we thought. And someday we're going to understand what Jevons paradox means and the power principle and all that kind of stuff. But for now, we don't. So I was wondering, what his spiritual group might think of a person like me talking like this. And I said, I can't imagine what your friends would have thought of me, a frolicking shit for brains confronting reality with a giggle and a fart. And I'm thinking, that complexity is really difficult to engage with. It's just not something that's easily done by people. And because of that, it's very hard to want to pin people down and convince them of something that's so hard to digest anyway, and that I don't even understand. And that most brilliant people in the world, scientists, physicists, whatever, also know they can't understand. It's beyond us. So Bill Rees has a good video on that. Maybe I'll stick it in my blog post where he discusses our intellectual limitations. But we think we're pretty smart. We're Homo hubris rather than Homo sapien, and we're Homo storyteller rather than Homo sapien. But we want to be sapient. So, as I've said before, all of these things are difficult to parse, and I'm equating great nature with God, right? Understanding how nature works is a good thing. And if we paid more attention to that and we valued that more, I don't think we would have the kind of leaders we have now. We wouldn't abide them. We would kick them out. We would develop a new way of being, a new way of life. And it might resemble something from the past with some technology thrown in. If we could slow down, it'd be really nice. So I talk about that, and then I do a little bit of a riff on. So I say, the cause of collapse. I don't know what's going to kill me, but if a doctor told me I was dying tomorrow, I think I'd be okay. I'd be like, I got a month to live. Okay, thanks, doc. I can handle it. But I've had a very fortunate life, so lucky me. I said, the cause of what's killing us or what will collapse civilization, isn't the vaccine or Donald Trump or something. It's ignorance of nature. That's what's going to be the cause of the collapse of civilization as we know it, right? So that's what I believe. And so, I'm thinking, we have this abundance. We could learn how to live in harmony with our environment, with living systems. Jesus magically, do you want fish? Here's fish. Do you enjoy wine? Here's wine. I interpret that as thinking, why is it so hard to live within our means? It's all there. The earth is abundant. And if we live within its carrying capacity, we can have everything we need. But if we're too greedy, if we're addicted to the 7 deadly sins, and too pathological in terms of the dark tetrad, dark psychology, we're not going to be able to make it. And I think the fall of humanity, that metaphor in Genesis or whatever, Adam and Eve, is a metaphor for just being too hubristic about knowledge, about what we can do and how we can dominate and control things as a apex predator. We lost our humility, our grace from nature. It's a fall from grace from nature, from God, whatever you want to think. So then I put an addendum here, which is a riff on the DeepSeek prompting and conversation that this other Steve had about AI. And at the end of it, it was talking about what we can do and why we feel left out, ostracized, or, you don't like me because I don't talk about fun things. So I went on to another AI and I made a DeepSeek podcast on that.
How did you get feeling online? Like, just constantly bombarded with stuff vying for your attention.
It's relentless.
Well, the conversation we're diving into today really taps into that.
Anyway, it's amazing. You cut and paste the text in there and it comes up with a podcast. I mean, it's crazy. I can't imagine. I look at these film AIs, quote unquote, these tools for making films. Oh man, it's unbelievable. Anyway, I put that in there so the reference that I'm riffing on down here, and then I say, I kind of quote some of the insights that Steve was able to prompt out of the LLM DeepSeek, which is the Chinese one. there's no conspiracies here. This conversation comes from a lot of data, a lot of literature, a lot of reports, a lot of papers that the computers are just going through and putting one thing after another to come up with this. It's really kind of magical in a way. So um, you're just talking about why you feel left out, and it comes up with things like the truth of collapse violates the foundational narratives that sustain modern life: progress, safety, and control. And I've said that a million times on my bicycle riding around Portugal. I've been reading this stuff about this kind of thing for years, and so it's second nature to me to view life that way. So I wouldn't be surprised. No, I'm not that arrogant that the LLM was looking at some of my content. No, I know. And my content is a derivative of other people's content. So I read books, I think about it. There you go. What you gonna do? When confronted with evidence that these narratives are false, the brain triggers cognitive dissonance, a state of psychological agony caused by holding conflicting beliefs. To resolve this pain, most people reject reality outright. So anyway, it's an interesting conversation. I edited it and changed it. I riffed on it, so it's not a verbatim quote of that prompted discussion with DeepSeek. But I think it's positive. It gives you some positive ways to look at things. So, for example, one bit of advice: we reframe our approach to communicating the laws of great nature, those are my words, with values instead of data. Instead of discussing collapse, we can ask questions that align with our neighbors' priorities. How do you want to be remembered by future generations? What do you want to do today to spread love and joy? Things like that. What can I do to help? We can highlight and encourage actions that improve life now. Community gardens, frugality, service, without invoking doom, the end of days, or whatever apocalypse we can imagine. Because things are going to happen, right? I mean, you're sitting in Gaza or Ukraine one day, and then the next day all hell breaks loose, and you're wondering what the heck just happened, And by then it's too late. You just have to go through it. So yeah, that's why I created my resource at causpelon.eu, was to give people some links that I find interesting and books that I've read that I found interesting, so that people could learn more about how things work and where we are and why we are where we are today and so on. So anyway, I put that in there. And at the end I said, I'm not alone. Many people walk this path quietly, fiercely, and with open eyes. And that was actually, that little sentence there was from the DeepSeek. And I could have said it myself. I probably have many times, things like that. Anyway, and then I said, what we need now is not hope but courage. And of course, I heard that somewhere as well. So, whoa, there's not an original thought in my mind. I'm not a beautiful mind. I don't have good game theory. And by the way, I find it hilarious, these conversations, this negotiation between the Trump administration and Putin's administration. It's so silly. I mean, I don't think the West has had good game theory for decades, since well before World War II, or maybe not ever. I don't know, but damn, we're really crap at this. You say, we want you to do this. Well, that's untenable. I'm not going to do that, but thanks for asking. We'll think about it. And the war goes on. It's so sad. I really wish we had better quality leaders. And I'm sorry that we just don't know how to find them and bring them to the fore and advocate for them and vote for them and give them power. So then I put a video podcast called, what's this thing called? It's called, Breaking Down Collapse, that this guy made. And I think it's pretty good. It takes you through everything. It's not offensive. It's not scary. He's just taking you through what we mean when we talk about overshoot, civilizational collapse, existential risk, and all the factors that are involved with that, including economics, politics, soil biology, whatever, pollution, all these different things. The polycrisis, all the things in the polycrisis. And I put an episode from Apple.
We like to have a little fun with it, but also make sure that you're aware of what's going on in the world of collapse.
We look forward to having you join us there.
A small leak in your roof. And the cost to take care of that leak is the same that it would ensure our collapse as well. So no matter how collapse begins, the process and the result of catabolic collapse is the same.
Okay, so anyway, this is a really interesting episode. It's called Catabolic Collapse. But I think everyone might find it really interesting to listen to the whole series because it really gives you a good foundational knowledge of what we're talking about when we're all about that, And it's not scary, really. It is what it is, and we can ignore it. That's fine. I mean, I'm not here to argue with people about what they believe. People believe what they believe, through social, cultural conditioning and other ways. And we're very stubborn about it. We identify with what we believe, and we don't want to give up that belief and so on. It's all fine with me, whatever you believe. And if you can't stand this subject, that's cool too. I think it's, these days I think it's ridiculous even to look at the news or read good journalists about what's going on today because it's all ridiculous. If you can't see what this whole system is doing to the world, and that it's past its by date. It's going down. If they can't see it, I just I guess it's going to take another 5 years or so for things to get worse than they are now, before people even start to notice, maybe. But I think a lot of people intuitively know that something's not right. And we're in the stage of blaming other people now, instead of taking some modicum of responsibility and trying to understand what's going on so that we can make more enlightened choices. We just avoided looking at it. And so I guess we're all waiting for something to happen that's going to wake us up. Woke, oh no, woke. But, all sides in culture think they're woke and criticize other people who think they're woke if they're not woke in the same way. So whatever. But anyway, I'm going to put the link to the blog post with this video. I suggest that you look into it. I don't think it's going to hurt you, but of course, if it is uncomfortable for you to think about these things, don't bother. Just do what makes you feel good, and as long as it's not hurting anybody, and come what may. I wish our leaders were peacemakers. I wish they understood nature, great nature, and I wish that was what they cared about most, but it isn't that way. The players care about status, wealth, power, control, and we seem to care about that too, so it is what it is, folks. Have a nice weekend. Take good care. Bouliam T out.